Should you play Albion Online in 2025? Let's talk about it. Albion Online is a free-to-play sandbox MMO with classless progression, a fully player-driven economy, and a big emphasis on full loot PvP. Not only is Albion one of the biggest sandbox MMOs, but it's held the test of time. It has a very active player count, positive reviews, and constant large updates. Where many others have fallen, this sandbox MMO just keeps on going. I first got into Albion last year, and I played it pretty much solo the entire time, just going around, doing my own thing, rather than doing the big guild stuff. So today I want to go over everything there is to do in the game, the good, the bad, and what the experience is like mostly as a solo player. I also want to talk about the big new update coming at the end of this month that will introduce something game-changing for new players. So let's get into this, and a big thanks to Sandbox Interactive for sponsoring this video. So before we get into any specifics or, individual parts of the game, I just want to talk about, what is Albion as a whole if you've never played it. So Albion is a sandbox game, which means it doesn't have the traditional, questing system of, you progress to level 60 and then you go do the dungeons and you do the raid. It's not like that in that the game puts you down a path and everyone walks that same path. This is a sandbox where you have a small tutorial and then you are free to do what you want in the world. And the world is broken up into zones. The world is this big world map and it's broken up into these little zones that are all interconnected. So you will travel through these zones and they all have different colors based on the rules of that zone. There are blue zones where you are relatively safe. You don't have to worry about someone taking all of your inventory and taking all of your gear. And it's low risk, low reward kind of zones. Then you have the higher risk, the red and the black zones, where it is much more risky. You have to fight to survive, and if you beat someone, you can pretty much take all their stuff, and that's the big adrenaline rush that lots of people like this game for. That's how the world is broken up, and then it's your journey of what parts of that world do you want to take part in. Do you want to play it safe? Do you want to go and gather and craft and go around the main cities trading goods? You can get involved in the PvE and go around fighting different monsters and camps. You can go into dungeons, you can go into lots of different places and just test your limits against PvE, and these things scale up in tiers. So, as you level up and you get stronger, you can fight stronger and stronger monsters, which all scale for a solo player and a group if you want to do either or. And then there's PvP. You can master PvP and just go out there and just destroy other people and take all of their stuff, which is a just massive adrenaline rush. I love just going out solo in budget gear and just trying to just take on as many people as possible and get back with as much as I can. That's the part of the game I really enjoy. But yeah, that's different things for everybody. There's also islands where you can go and, raise animals into mounts and farming. And there's lots of other things outside of that. So that's kind of the game as a whole. Hopefully that helps you understand kind of what this world is. But now let's talk more onto the specifics. First up, this classless system. They have this system called You Are What You Wear. So let's talk about that. So when we talk about Albion's classless system, it's exactly that. You don't pick a class. You don't play as a mage, or you don't level a warrior. It's not like that. You are whatever you wear. So if you were to go and craft or buy a set of heavy armor and a two-handed sword, that would be your build. You would be a heavy armored two-handed sword build. So the way that works is right now I'm playing as a quarterstaff. I really like the quarterstaff. I really like it for PvP. So I've equipped a quarterstaff, and these are the abilities on this quarterstaff that I can then use. So you can pick what abilities you want to use. So do you want to have concussive combo, or do you want to have whirling strikes? And that will then change on your hotbar as one of your active abilities. Similarly, this is the same for, your helmet, your feet, your chest piece. So you choose your build, you choose your loadout, and then it's up to you to find what works. What do you like for PvP? What do you like for PvE? If you want to play safe, have something fast. If you want to be tanky, wear tanky gear. And that's kind of how it works. So there's a lot of freedom in what you can play, and there's no end to trying new things and playing different builds. The more you play with a certain piece of gear, the more your character gets better at using that gear. So there is a thing here called item power, and you can see if you hover over it, it has gear power from the item, and then you have a mastery bonus of how much you've played with that gear. So the more you level each piece of gear, the better at using it you will be, and the stronger that item is in your hands. So even if I'm playing with a quarterstaff all day, tomorrow I'll be stronger with it because I've played with it more. So that's how it works, and it's tied to the Destiny board. So this is the Destiny board, and this is how it works. And I'm not gonna complicate it or confuse it because it looks a lot harder than it is. The more you use an item, you will get fame. So if we go in the same example and talk about the quarterstaff. So over here, you can see it goes like hunter to quarterstaff. And the more you use quarterstaff, I've now got quarterstaff up to level 81. And then from quarterstaff, you have all the different types of quarterstaffs that you can have. You can have the quarterstaff, you can have the double-bladed staff, you can have the special staffs down here, like the enchanted ones, like the really cool ones. So it's up to you what you want to play with. And the more you use it, the more you level it up. The last few days, I've been playing quarterstaff. I've leveled this to like 54. So now I get a big damage bonus that I didn't have before because I've played with it more. And similarly, it's the same for gear. If you choose to play with like light armor, like a leather jacket, I use that a lot. So it's 100. If you want to play in heavy armor, it's the same. Swords, it's the same. It's very similar if you've played like Final Fantasy 14 and you have like the job system. So you're your character, but you can switch jobs. It's kind of like that, but there aren't like 10, 15 jobs. There's infinite possibilities of things you can wear. So that's the system. Okay, now let's talk about the different types of content and the types of things you can go and do. And I'm going to kind of go in a scale from the things I'm more familiar with and the things that are available a lot to a solo player, and then up to the things I haven't really done myself, but I'll mention them briefly. So the first thing is the open world. You will leave the town and you will go out into the open world to gather, to explore. And as you're in the open world, there is tons of open world content. From these small little camps where you have to go and defeat an amount of mobs and you get to open a chest, to boss lairs and dungeons, and lots of other little events that you can go and take part in as a solo or small group. And these have tiered difficulty, so close to the city, they are very easy, you can go there, no problem, and the further out you get, the more challenging and higher tier they get, getting even harder when you get into like the red and the black zones. So there's a good sense of progression and a way to slowly, progress and evolve your character. While in the worlds, there are then these things you can interact with that will take you into different types of instance content. So let's talk about that. One of my favorite zones is something called the Mists. You will see a small wisp-like creature floating around, and you will go up to it and follow it, and it will open a portal and it will take you into a mist. The mists are perfect for like solo players because they are just a few players in each mist. So you go in and you have this, it's similar to the open world, but there are, more rewards, smaller scale PvP. You're not going to run into like 10 people in there. And there are rare mobs, chests, and then every now and again you can find a entrance to these things called like an abbey, which is like this big kind of roguelike zone where you go into rooms, you defeat a bunch of mobs, and then you get a buff while you're in the abbey, and then you can go around and loot all these different rooms, and it's really fun. There's like mini bosses in here, and there are certain chests that spawn full of loot and other players, which is even more fun. So yeah, that's the mist. I really like the mist because you can hop from mist to mist as you go and loot a mist and you do everything there. You could follow another wisp and jump to the next wisp. So you can spend hours in there, which is my personal favorite thing to do. Then you have the Roads of Avalon. I would love to tell you I fully understand this, but I've spent days in here and I still don't fully get how they work. There are these big portals that open up and you go into them and it takes you into this like, I don't know what maybe like a steampunk kind of zone. And you're in this like place between worlds and you go through this zone and there are these like mechanical monsters and these humanoids. You fight for treasures and there's really high level gathering things here so you can gather like really high resources. And then when you come out of the other side, you appear somewhere completely different in the world. So they're kind of like going through a teleporter, doing a bunch of stuff and then coming out the other end. So they're really interested. These are also pretty good solo player. I've had a lot of success in here because if you get a good chest in here, it's great. You'll usually run into like a couple of people at most, but it's pretty fun. I think they limit like only 7 people can go in at once. So worst case scenario, you have a small chance to get away if you are rushed. And then you have dungeons. You've got dungeons which are like 1v1, 2v2. You've corrupted dungeons, lots of stuff in there. You have like invaded dungeons, which works kind of like Dark Souls, where you go in and you can be invaded by another player. You can play it safe and go in where you don't drop loot, or you can have like, high risk where you can loot each other. That's kind of all of the content I do. I go into dungeons, I go into the Mists, I go into the Avalonian Roads, and I just explore the open world. And you just go out and adventure. And that's pretty much my gameplay every day. Now, on top of this, then you have the big stuff. You have world bosses. You have Zerg v Zerg, big guild warfare, massive guilds. You can fight over territories, you can fight over zones, you can fight for the nation standings, and big guilds are always fighting in these massive battles of like huge like full screen fights to take over hideouts and take over territories in the Black Zone and in these different areas. And it's a whole endgame system that people get really into. Now, I can't speak for it at all because, like I say, I've never even joined a guild. Really, I mostly just play this small scale, maybe 1 or 2 friends at times, or mostly just purely solo. So can you play Albion solo? If I can't go do a world boss and I can't take part in these big fights, can you play Albion solo? Yes. I will say Albion Online is one of the best sandbox MMOs for playing solo, and that's what I really like to do. I don't like to sit in a big hall and orchestrate these big fights. I just like to go out and have fun and just play it casually, to be honest. So I love solo play, and there are so many things where you are forced into a funnel of a few players. Like I say, the mists, they open and it's just a couple of players. Maybe you'll get grouped up on, maybe, but generally it's small 1v1. And that's it. There is like the roads, which limits only a few players in at a time. So, and you can see how many people are in there. So you know if you're going into a busy one. There's the dungeons, which are again 1v1. So there's lots of very, very fair 1v1 or small scale solo events and opportunities to really learn the game, get better, progress your character, and just have fun. But do be aware, if you step out of that content, you're gonna start running into problems. If you want to go and explore, really, say there's a treasure chest spawn and it opens in 20 minutes, or there's like a rare tier 7 resource spawning on the map in 30 minutes, and you want to go do it as a solo player, lower your ambitions, because that is going to be, if a group can go do something, they will go do something. And if a group can go and take a high resource, they'll take it. If a group can go and take a chest, they'll take it. And if you're in like the high risk zones, people run around in groups of 5+ and will go for you as a single player. So is it solo friendly? Can you play a solo player? 100%. But you always have to remember, this is a sandbox MMO, and you know, it's numbers matter. If there are 5 people, they beat 1 generally. Like this is a open world sandbox MMO. And if you're going into big encounters, if you're going up to world bosses, going up to high tier resources, going into very popular parts of the map where there are lots of people, expect to run into lots of people, and you're gonna have a bad time doing that. So yeah, solo player friendly, absolutely, but not everything is available to you as a solo player. Okay, now let's talk about the other side, the non-combat side of the game, the gathering, the crafting, and the islands. So the game has a fully player-driven economy where the world is split up into all these different towns and zones, and a big part of the game is moving things between the worlds. So you can see here we have like, I'll go into the royal continent. So if we come down to here and we go down to this town down here, like Limhurst, this is where I normally play out of. If you can see down here, you have forests and like grassy areas. If we look at the forests, you can see these have tier 2 to 4 wood, stone, and hide, like gatherables from animals, that kind of thing. That is what this zone has. And it has, you know, 9% enchanted resources. So that is what you're going to find in these zones down here. So if you want to gather that sort of stuff, you would gather it from these blue zones near Limhurst. Now, maybe you want to gather ore. You would then need to go up into the mountains and go into the snowy zones, for example, which if we click on this zone, it has up to tier 5 ore. It has, what would you call this, like foraging, like flax, and then it has metals. So it's up to you, like what you want to do and where you want to, you know, be. Maybe you're going to be the person who goes and gathers from up here and brings those needed resources down into Limhurst and through, you know, the yellow zones or the red zones. Or you could even go out into the black zone and gather out there. So I mostly gather in the black zone because, as you can see, if you look at the different zones, the black zones, they have up to tier 7 materials. So it's much higher, makes much, you know, better gear. And as you level your, you know, your gathering abilities, you can gather much higher tier stuff. So for example, I've just come out of the black zone portal, and you can see right here, we've got iron ore. So you could start gathering iron ore right here and then just ferry that back somewhere safe. So that's kind of how the game works. And lots of people will just play as gatherers. They'll load up a big ox and they'll just go around gathering resources. And gathering is not just one dimensional of just hitting rocks. You know, you can see you'll find like rare ones. So you've got like an uncommon, it'll go to like different rarities, and the depending on the zone you're in will have different rarities. And you can see, you know, whereas a basic one might get you like 4 per item, a uncommon one is 12. So the higher you go, the better. You can also find monsters. So, you know, we've got this guy here. We can fight him, and he's like a big rock monster. If we defeat him, we'll be able to mine him and get, you know, the resources from him, which is just a cool system. So you see, we can now mine the tier 5 titanium ore from the rock monster. So even gathering is pretty fun. I can't speak much for the crafting side because I've never really crafted. I've never really got into crafting, but similarly, all this time gathering, just funnels into crafting, and you can craft all of the gear in the game. It's a fully player-driven economy where every item in the game is made for and used by the players. And as you save up from either, gathering, PvP, PvE, however you're making your silver, you can buy your own island. So this is mine. I've got a house here, and there's like, you can store stuff and have a safe place. You can also farm. So you see these cabbages already. You can take them, you can replant them. And this is a way to have your own little piece of the world. And it's completely safe and completely, to do with what you want to do. You have these plots and you place down whatever you want. So for example, if I was to build, say, one thing I want to get into now is like raising animals. So you can build a kennel to place and grow wild animals. Okay, this is built now, and as you raise animals in here, they will then be, returned to you as mounts. So you can then ride them as your own mount. You can use this in combat. You can use this to get around the world. You can train all sorts of different animals. And that's just like one thing you can put. If you're a crafter, you can have a whole crafted empire here. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of show this as we play through it rather than just give you some clips, because this is a really cool system. That's pretty much Albion as a whole. That's pretty much everything there is to talk about the game as a whole. And overall, like, I would just want to talk about the game overall. Is this for you? And then the future of Albion, because there is an element here of this big new patch that I do want to talk about. So overall, Albion, should you play in 2025? Well, number one, do you like sandbox MMOs? If the answer is no, I'm not going to waste any more time trying to convince you, because if you want to go from quest to quest to quest, this isn't for you. This is not a, story-driven or quest-driven game. It is a sandbox. You can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want, and you can travel around and do the things that you enjoy and ignore the things you don't. So that's the first thing. The second thing is find what you want to do. What do you want from the game, and do that. For me personally, there are things I don't like. I'm not a big fan of the crafting, so I've never crafted. That doesn't put me off though, because I really like the gathering, and I like going into like the hard parts of content, fighting like strong monsters to gather from them, going into like risky zones and trying to get around and gather the really rare resources. I'm not a fan of the big guild v guild content. I really don't like it about this game how dominant the Zerg v Zerg content is. However, I love the game because there's so much small scale that I really enjoy. I just don't touch all of that stuff because I know it's not for me. I love the myths. I love the Avalonian roads. I love the the small instance content like the dungeons. And that's something only you can answer. Hopefully I've shown enough in this video to show the different sides of the game. But if there's something you think you'll enjoy here, this is a free game, so give it a go. Lastly, I do just want to talk about this big update. And the reason I want to talk about it in a new player video, kind of like a review or a should you play in 2025 kind of video, is because this is aimed and fixes a lot of things that new players maybe had questions about, or that maybe put new players off. So the main thing coming in this big new update, the Abyssal Depths on June the 30th, is the depths, this new zone, kind of like a dungeon. And this will be a small scale zone where you can go down, fight monsters, and go down further and further to the depths where there's a boss at the bottom. So you have a instanced, skill-based, small PvP zone, which isn't just going to be over-zerged, and some extra new features that are going to be really useful for new players. Orange zones are going to come to the game, which is a middle ground between full loot PvP and safe zones where you only drop your inventory but not your gear. Gear caps are going to be added to the safer zones so that when you do get into PvP in these lower tier zones, you're not going to be fighting people that have got pure end game gear. Their gear will be lowered so you can actually compete a little bit more. And finally, they're reworking the starter tutorial. So if you put all of that together, this is just a really nice time for new players, and not just new players, but small scale players and solo players. It just feels a lot better and a lot easier to get in. When I first tried getting into this game a few years ago, it was quite painful. I came back last year and it did feel a lot better. And now with this update, it's seemingly moving even more in the right direction. So I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, let me know down below. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.